After a decade in office, the government's own Demographic Change Council only just released its final strategies in May of this year to deal with this problem. Labor has had 11 years to do something about a problem its own report says we've known about for decades. Our population growth has been pitiful up against every other state and territory. We have the slowest growth rate in the country. And even in times when our population has grown, we've experienced losses in the 15 to 29 year age group. The government's efforts to stem the flow of young people leaving our state have failed. Really unsurprising, perhaps, when the government's got no policy on population or indeed a strategy to tackle this issue. In fact, the only recommended policy the government has come up with to keep young people and families in this state here is to undertake surveys and convene a population forum to work out why this problem is happening. It's taken over a decade to come up with that. And apparently, when we talk about gimmicks, the best we can do is give the 500,000 Tasmanian a slab of beer.
Gentlemen, I will need you to stick to the time allowed, because I promised my child I'd be getting him from school on time this afternoon. Nick McKim, 60 seconds.
Yes, thanks, Tim. We wouldn't want you to be late. Look, there are significant demographic challenges facing Tasmania, as David said. I agree with Will. So far, the government has been all talk, but very little action. But what we really need to understand as a community is what is our optimal carrying capacity in Tasmania. And certainly as a Green, you'd expect me to think about environmental carrying capacity, but also what about our infrastructure? What about other social support services? Are they in place to carry the kind of population that I suspect both David and Will want to see in terms of an increase? Well, I don't think they are, but we need to understand what our maximum carrying capacity is. That's why it's so disappointing, for example, that after 11 years of Labor government, we still do not have a state infrastructure plan. How can we possibly plan for population growth without an infrastructure plan, David?
David Bartlett, you get 60 seconds now to rebut.
We do have a state infrastructure plan. It's another one of those you've missed off the website, like the industry assistant principles, Nick. The government has been working on demographic change. Planning reform is about demographic change. Water and sewerage reform is about demographic change. School rationalisation is about demographic change. Health reform is about demographic change. The best way, though, that we can face the challenges of demographic change is not always see it as a negative, but seeing it as an opportunity. Some of the fastest growing markets in services and products are in the seniors sector. Secondly, we need to attract a new generation of people back to Tasmania after the Liberals and the Greens lost them in the mid-90s, to come back to new generation industries, new generation jobs, based on new generation infrastructure such as optic fibre, renewable energy, and of course irrigation providing job opportunities.
David Bartlett, thank you. Now a position statement on population. Will Hodgman, Liberal Leader.
Thanks, Tim. David, if you had an infrastructure policy or a strategy, why did your incoming minister, the latest in a long line of infrastructure ministers, say it was the first thing he was going to develop? Now, it's a myth we're enjoying good population growth. Our population, as I say, in terms of growth relative to other states and territories, well below national growth. So what do we need? We need a sustainable budget with disciplined fiscal strategy and good economic policy to provide the right environment for business to grow and to create job opportunities. The ability to get a job will be the main thing that will attract people to live here and also be a reason to keep our young people here in the state. We need strong and effective investment in education and in skills, and we need a government with a population policy and a strategy to deal with our demographic time bomb. Labor has had 11 years to develop such a thing, a problem we've known about for years, and a central element of my government's policy agenda will be a population policy including specific strategies to attract and keep younger people in the state.
60-second rebuttal now from, 60-second response, I should say, from Nick McKim.
Well, Will's right in a lot of what he said, in that jobs certainly will attract people to Tasmania, but I want to make the point very clearly that it's not necessarily about preventing young people from leaving this island, because smart young Tasmanians will inevitably, some of them, want to leave Tasmania. What we need is to make sure they come back, they build their capacity, they build their skills, they build their networks. And what we need is a strategy to bring those people back once they've upped their skills, once they've made the relationships that can help this state into the future, bring them back and make them part of a positive future for Tasmania, because there is, as the TCCI has said, a demographic time bomb going forward in this state. It's not necessarily that old people are coming here, it's actually that there is a net loss of young people, and we need to make sure we get on top of that, because young people are the future, socially and economically, and I'll beat you by 2 seconds.
David Bartlett, 60 seconds.
Well, as I've clearly said, population growth is not about a gimmick or even writing some strategic plan. It follows economic opportunity and lifestyle appeal. The state government has been working exactly in these areas, and the proof is in the pudding. Since January 1999, ABS statistics have shown that the Tasmanian population has grown every quarter in the last 10 years. That is majority government in action. It is also economic opportunity in action. The facts of the matter remain that the last time population was in decline in Tasmania was during the Rundle-Cheek plan. They had to grow population, which was gimmick-based. Population will follow economic opportunity.
All right, David Bartlett, thank you. To rebut there, Will Hodgman.
The economic growth the Premier boasts about, 0.9% in this financial year. The budget papers predict 0.8% next year. We are being beaten by the Northern Territory. We're being outstripped by the Queensland state 3-1. More people move into that state every few weeks than they do into this state in a year. We have a serious problem. It is a demographic time bomb, because it is not only impacting on our economic productivity, our capacity for the state to generate revenues, it is leading to a skewed demographic that is going to place immense pressure on our health and human services into the future. We do need a strategy. We do need a plan. A Liberal government will deliver one, and we will set clear targets. Yes, we need to provide jobs, but we also do need to provide all the things that make Tasmania so special in an enhanced way that attracts younger people back to this state or keeps them here in the first place. I wouldn't want to argue we should shut the doors and keep every Tasmanian here and not allow them to experience life abroad, but we've got to replace the ones who go.
All right, the final position statement then on population. Greens leader Nick McKim.
Thanks, Tim. As I said in my introduction, this century will come to be defined by how we as a species respond to sustainability issues, like climate change, but that's not the only one, and like peak oil, not the end of oil, but the end of abundant, cheap oil. These are the long-term public policy imperatives that we have to address now, so that we can be a market leader, so that we can be an early adapter in responding to global challenges that we know are coming down the line. And this is not happening. In the context of population, I say to you, climate change will mean we become a more attractive place to live. No doubt. Some people will come here through necessity, some people will come here through choice. But we don't know, as I said previously, what our optimal carrying capacity is, and I can tell you now that the Greens, if we had the chance, would ensure that we make an imperative to assess that carrying capacity so that we can be sustained.
60 seconds now from David Bartlett.